Hey everybody, so today the piece I am doing is a stained glass snowman. Not just any snowman, I like to think it's Frosty the Snowman, that's what I'm calling him. The template I'm using actually is a regular stained glass snowman pattern. I usually kind of draw up or, trace my own things, but she wanted this exact same one, which you can find a template for it right on Pinterest, or if you Google stained glass template snowman, you can find it on there. Actually, I picked out this gorgeous frosted glass. I know snowmen should be white, but I just love the idea of this kind of icy frosted glass. I love using it for Christmas stuff, and it just looks great. I did get some more orders for snowman, which I did make them white, but this was actually my favorite one. And I overdid it on drawing my templates. The S's that you see there are actually for the scarves. I marked them, all the scarves, with an S and numbered them, S1, S2, S3. The same with the hat, H1, H2, H3, and the snowman I just marked with an S. So I went a little overboard on I just started drawing out everything on there. This snowman actually only has 3 pieces to his body. He is a very easy body to do. The whole piece in itself is actually fairly simple. The most complicated thing is just the tails on the scarf, because they do come to a point and they do have a little bit of a curve in them. But it's a great way to practice curves and have a really cool piece if you want to try out this template. Cutting this glass, it's a little bit thicker than a lot of your regular kind of stained glass pieces, but it is fairly easy to break. I was happy that it was only 3 pieces, but it did come off pretty good. So I wanted to find a really pretty kind of iridized glass for the scarf. I have a scarf and then it has a little scarf on the hat, but I wanted to make sure it was a really pretty kind of opalescent type of color, and I chose this gorgeous blue color. I love this. It's something I use all the time. It's really highly requested. Anything kind of opalized obviously is always popular. In doing this glass is actually opalized on both sides, but a lot of it is, when you get glass like this, it can be on one side. So you do want to pay attention to that. If you want to have your kind of shiny iridescent parts, you might need to flip your templates over to match, so you can make sure it's all flowing the way you want it to. And sometimes cutting glass that has kind of like a film on it like this can be a little bit of a pain. Your blade tends to kind of glide across it very fast, so it's very easy to slip and definitely go off your line. So pay attention to that when you have really opalized glass, really spectrumy glass. It can be a little slip when you're using your glass cutter. These are the tricky parts here, just getting into these little mini curves. If there's a curve and it ends in a point like that, it's always tricky. By the time you've seen it, I've done a lot of snowmen, and their scarves break a lot. I'd like to say I cut them out perfectly every time, but those little points, especially on this one, they get me. I mean, They give me a lot. But you want to just hold your finger underneath the weak points and really apply that counter pressure to it. That's kind of the trick. And you want to make sure your score line is really good. You want to make sure you have a lot of pressure on there. And you can kind of see my hand wiggling up as I kind of pick off the pieces. I'm making sure I'm applying pressure to all the weak points. So constantly moving my fingers back and forth. Now it's time for his little top hat, and I found the perfect glass for it. It is a kind of charcoal gray wispy type color. It's beautiful. I love this black, and I especially love that if it's a sun catcher or anything like that, you can see perfectly through it. It just gives it a really pretty kind of stained glass feel rather than your totally opaque glass, which you can still use. I'm just in love with wispy type glass. I had a little bit of a hard time. I kept messing up my pattern. I tend to drive myself crazy and I get all mixed up. I'll keep turning everything around, and there'll be a point where you're just like, oh my god, it's all wrong. Nothing fits. There's a main thing off. But if you keep kind of flipping things around, you'll realize, oh, it fits together perfectly. So I had quite the hell of a time during this project. I had to look at my other printed piece of paper just to kind of get a feel for what I was doing. This happens to me all the time, even though I mark them, so it's very easy to get kind of totally lost in your image. So then it is time to grind and foil. Now you want to just make sure it's nice and clean by the time you put on your foil. So I spritz it usually always with rubbing alcohol, and I just wipe it down, making sure to get all that kind of gristle off. That there's always a film from grinding. You always have kind of a powder on the edges, so you just want to make sure you wipe all of that off. And you can do that with rubbing alcohol. It's just a great easy way if you have it in a squirt bottle, and at the same time that'll help get off any of the oils from your hands. Now my thing I cut out backwards. I did that because my blue scarf is more shiny and iridescent on one side. So I was actually planning on having my snowman look the other way than what you saw it cut out. And this is to make sure my shiny side goes up. And this is just to make sure that side goes up, and that is the the prettiest side, so I want that to be the front of the piece. As you can see here, you can really see the iridescence of it, and that's what I love about it. I usually always try to include some sort of iridescent glass in all my pieces. Now, some people, I mean, literally don't like iridescent glass. I think it's crazy. They say it reminds them of like an oil slick, which it does, but that's what's so pretty about it. But unless they specify, usually all my pieces have some sort of iridescent thing incorporated in them. Alright, it is time to add my jump ring, something for him to hang from, and you want to just make sure you have a nice kind of border around your piece. It's very easy for that foil to lift up. If you just tin it, that's very dangerous. I know some people do that. I see some pieces that they're just tinned and then they have a jump ring attached to it, and any pressure, that's just going to rip off. Now, with this piece, there is a specific front and back, so I actually put my jump ring flush against my work surface. A lot of the times, you know, you don't want to do this. You want your jump ring to be in the middle of the piece. But with this, my jump ring is actually going to be flush against the back of my piece. I want this to be flush against the window. It's a sun catcher for the customer's bay window, and so I really want to establish a front and a back. I also do this with my moon phases. A lot of the times there is a very clear front to your glass. Some of them are iridescent only on one side, or some of them are a little muddied from the colors on the back. So it can help the customer kind of establish the front and the back, and I do that with my moon phases because usually they're very coordinating, the patterns are coordinating, you know, but other than that, I would want to keep it in the middle of my piece. So keep that in mind when you do apply your jump ring. It's super easy for these jump rings to just pop right off and they get stuck to your solder iron, and it is such a pain. It happens all the time to me. I decided to go with a black patina, which I'm really happy with. The black patina is awesome. It just gives it a lot of contrast. It helps make those kind of colors pop. Obviously, the piece is kind of, the only colored part of my piece is the scarf, so it's cool. It makes the color really pop out, especially in his hat. So with the contrast of the black hat, if I left it silver, there'd just be too much going on, so it gives it a nice pop. I think he will complement somebody's holiday decorations quite swimmingly. I really love him. I love the frosted glass. I have a bunch more orders for these, but I had to use white glass for those, so, but I think they also will come out awesome because I have like an opalized glass for those. But yeah, so after, of course, you patina, you're going to want to buff off your patina, and then you are going to want to wax him. Here he is. I love him. My customer says she loves him, so I'm super pumped about that. But what I actually did with him was I used some paint to just mark off his little buttons, his carrot nose, and his coal eyes. And you can use a lot of different things. You can use like a fabric paint, like a puffy three-dimensional paint. That is actually what I used for him. Or you could actually use a paint that is made for glass. You can put it in the oven and kind of seal it. So that is another option. And I just love like the three-dimensional look for this because Frosty is kind of a fun, whimsical character, and it kind of brings some life to have that three-dimensional aspect to him. And I hope you enjoyed this video. So happy December. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the Facebook page to see all what's going on day to day. Till next time, thanks for watching.